On Christmas Eve, a billionaire discovers an 8-year-old girl hidden in trash. What happens next is unimaginable. Michael Thornton slipped away from the glimmering charity gala, the echoes of applause fading as he stepped into the swirling snow. The evening had been a parade of speeches and superficial sentiments about children's welfare, yet his mind drifted to numbers, mergers, profits, quarterly forecasts. The sharp contrast between the warmth of black-tie soirees and the icy streets gnawed at him. Duty, or perhaps something deeper, pulled him toward the alleyways, where shadows danced beneath blinking streetlights. As the engine purred softly to a stop, a faint whimper pierced the silence, yanking him from his financial reverie. He hesitated, a war of instincts churning within him. Call the authorities. Ignore it and move on. A flicker of curiosity ignited urgency, compelling him to step into the biting cold. The alley swallowed him whole, the stench of refuse mixing grotesquely with the fresh scent of falling snow. Then he saw her. A fragile figure beneath a mound of discarded boxes. An 8-year-old girl, Emily, shivered beneath the weight of the city's neglect, clutching a battered doll that likely held the last vestiges of warmth in her heart. His stomach churned at the sight. A childhood lost in a world where he had fought so hard to transcend. The memory of his own unwanted past swirled within him. Scraps of neglect that had haunted him all too vividly now surfaced, blending with a rush of empathy he wasn't prepared for. Why are you here? His voice emerged unsteady, cracking in the stillness of the night, exposing his inner conflict. Shouldn't he just walk away? But doing so felt increasingly impossible. He moved closer, the girl's frightened eyes mirrored a haunting familiarity. Protecting her would mean raising questions he wasn't ready to confront. Could he truly see past his ruthless business persona? Would the world ever accept a billionaire as a father, especially to a little girl who belonged nowhere? Before he knew it, he found himself proposing a reckless solution, taking her home for the night. In his lavish penthouse, surrounded by the trappings of wealth, warmth enveloped them, yet anxiety gnawed at him. Each crackle of the fire echoed the weight of his decision. What would tomorrow bring? Visions of legal battles and judgment loomed as doubts crept in, strangling his heart. This was the moment of reckoning, one that tangled with every shred of his being. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. His thoughts faltered as Emily's talent for painting emerged like a splash of color against a monochrome backdrop. Each brushstroke stirred something deep within him, whispers of purpose and responsibility clashing violently. A legacy built on nurturing creativity versus one forged by a relentless pursuit of power and status. Guilt twisted in his chest as her dreams intertwined with his dread, each moment emptying his soul of certainty. As dawn threatened to break, bringing light to a tense reality, Michael grappled with the impending judgment of a world that might never accept them. The air felt heavy with unspoken fears. What would he do if the authorities came knocking? Would he risk it all for love? Breath rattled in his chest, desperation tugging at him, heart urging him to protect what he had unexpectedly found. Together, they painted futures on canvas, yet within him churned an unresolved tempest. Could he embrace fatherhood in a world quick to categorize, or would he remain a billionaire swallowed by the glaring shadows of his past? The question hung thick in the air, a ticking clock as dawn crept closer, casting uncertainty over them both. Emily's laughter broke through the silence like a soft chime, her small hand dancing over the canvas with an effortless joy that both captivated and unnerved Michael. For a moment, he allowed himself to revel in the innocence of her creativity. It was a stark contrast to the sterile, cutthroat world he navigated daily, a world dominated by spreadsheets and ruthless negotiations. Watching her fill the page with vibrant colors, he recognized a flicker of possibility igniting within him. Perhaps, in this small girl, lay a path toward the life he had never dared to envision. Yet with each stroke of the brush, doubts clawed at the edges of his mind. He couldn't shake the nagging fear that he was mere moments away from forfeiting everything he had built. How would his corporate partners react if they knew he took in a child from the streets? Would they question his ability to manage a major investment, or would they simply laugh at his newfound vulnerability? The voices of the boardroom echoed in his head, taunting him. Showing weakness was not an option. His thoughts spiraled as he observed Emily's brief but radiant moments of happiness. There was something pure about her, untainted by the cynicism of adulthood. A part of him knew that this might be his chance and opportunity to radically shift his narrative. But could such a drastic change be sustainable? His business acumen scoffed at the thought of emotional entanglements, yet the uncertainty began chipping away at his carefully constructed facade. After hours of painting, Emily leaned back, tilting her head as she scrutinized her work. "Look!" she exclaimed, eyes sparkling with pride. "It's like a fairy tale." The sight of her joy coalesced all his internal conflicts into a single, heavy question: what kind of life could he offer this child? He had everything: riches, power, the freedom to shape decisions on a grand scale. But when faced with the simplicity of her joy, he felt inadequate in a way that wealth could never remedy. Instead of an answer, guilt surged through him as he envisioned her future. He imagined a life where she might be swept away into foster care, or worse, back into the unforgiving streets. He knew he had a choice to make. In his gut, the instincts of a businessman warred with the growing paternal instincts that was awakening in him. Hadn't he fought against the odds to rise from nothing? Wasn't it worth risking everything to ensure another wouldn't face the same fate? "Emily," he finally ventured, his heart pounding in his chest, "I want to help you. I want to take care of you." Her eyes widened, and he was suddenly acutely aware of the weight of his words. Would she see his offer as a lifeline or a betrayal? Would she welcome his presence in her life, or would she recoil at the shadow of his past? As he contemplated his offer, he felt the chilling grip of reality tighten around him. What could a billionaire truly provide a child like Emily? The darkness of his own past whispered doubts into his ears. Could he really be trusted with her heart? Michael realized that this would not just be an act of charity, it was a pivotal shift in his identity. He would have to confront his own demons and dismantle the walls he had built to protect himself. Embracing fatherhood would mean facing vulnerabilities he had buried under layers of material success. But the allure of the change, of redefining himself, was intoxicating. Perhaps this was the true investment he had been looking for, one rooted not in profit margins, but in love. And yet, just as he felt a spark of hope, the reality of their situation clawed at him, reminding him of the precariousness of their circumstances. Could he truly transform the chaos of his life into something beautiful? As thoughts turned to legal struggles and societal norms looming like dark clouds overhead, he braced himself for what lay ahead. The moment was drawing near when he would need more than just resolve. He would require courage to face the challenges waiting just around the corner. The doorbell rang with an urgency that echoed his sudden tension, jolting him from contemplation. Who could that be at this hour? With cautious trepidation, he moved toward the sound, every step a reminder of the uncertainty of the future they were stepping into together. The time had come to face the broader world he had evaded for too long. As he opened the door, Michael immediately recognized the stern face of his attorney, Lena. Her presence sent a jolt through him. She was an anchor in the chaotic storm beginning to swirl around his decision. Her expression, serious and tight-lipped, underscored the gravity of the situation they were stepping into. "Michael," she said, already stepping past him into the house. "We need to talk." The formal tone struck him like a cold breeze, all remnants of warmth from the day drifting away. "Talk about what?" he questioned, wrestling the uncertainty in his gut as he ushered her into the living room where Emily was still gathering mint-green brush strokes on her canvas. Lena's gaze, softening at the sight of the child, if only for a moment, quickly morphed back into a businesslike detachment as she turned her attention back to Michael. "I've received word that the previous guardians of Emily have initiated proceedings. They want her back." The words hit him hard, like a punch in the gut. His breath quickened as the gravity of her statement began to sink in. What do you mean, want her back? She was abandoned. Legally speaking, they still hold certain rights, Lena replied, her voice steady as she pulled out her tablet to display documentation. We need to act quickly. If we don't, social services could step in, and we might find ourselves fighting an uphill battle. He felt the weight of Emily's presence nearby, her innocent chatter now a distant echo as his focus zeroed in on the reality creeping closer like a shadow. No. No, this can't be happening. The uncertainty clawed at his heart, just as he began to grasp the flicker of hope that their connection could offer. Michael, calm down, Lena urged, desperate to control the rapidly spiraling conversation. This is serious business, and you need to understand what you're taking on. I know what I'm taking on, he snapped, the desperation tinging his voice. I'm trying to ensure a safe life for her. Lena adjusted her glasses, the glasses he'd often seen as a marker of her no-nonsense approach. This is bigger than that. You can't just be the soft-hearted billionaire. You will need to show that your home is better for her than wherever she is coming from. With growing frustration, Michael clenched his jaw. What am I, then? A charity case? I care for her, genuinely care. Isn't that enough? Caring isn't enough in a court of law, she replied, her passion for the child's well-being evident even within the sterile structure of legalese. You'll need to prove it through documentation, assessments. Empathy won't sway the judge. His mind raced, envisioning a future where Emily could be ripped from the sanctuary he had begun to establish, where the smile that illuminated her face would fade into shadow. He felt himself fracturing under the pressure. Could he truly navigate this system that was designed to protect her, or would it ultimately turn against him? Okay, he finally said, forcing a deep breath to steady his nerves. What do we need to do? What do I need to show? As Lena outlined the steps and parameters, he knew he would have to delve deeper into his own life to make the necessary changes. They would need references, a demonstration of stability, the ability to show that he could provide a nurturing environment. He had succeeded in his career through calculated risks, but this was on another level. It wasn't just about wealth, it was about vulnerability, authenticity, and a willingness to expose himself to potential heartbreak. Each requirement felt like both a mountain to climb and an invitation to disclose parts of his life he had long kept hidden. As they discussed the next steps, Michael glanced at Emily. The child was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her, lost in a world of color. A world he wanted desperately to protect. Michael, we need to prepare for a home assessment within the week, Lena emphasized. Evaluate your current lifestyle. If we don't pass, we will lose her. His heart raced, a mix of determination and fear bubbling within him. Emily's laughter and joy were now intertwined with his own burgeoning paternal instincts, driving him to conquer the daunting challenges ahead. I'll do it, he replied, an unexpected determination flooding his words. I'll show them I'm worthy of being her guardian. I will protect her. But as he made this promise, doubt clutched at him. Could he really mold his chaotic existence into something that would stand up against the scrutiny of the legal system? The challenge was more than logistical, it was a reflection of who he was in all facets of life. With each passing moment, he understood he was not just investing in a child, but becoming someone entirely new. The doorbell rang again, this time echoing the relentless pressure of the situation. It's time, he said, steeling himself for the conversations ahead, conversations that would force him to confront the man he had been and usher in the father he yearned to become. But as he moved toward the door, an ominous sense of uncertainty weighed heavily in the air. Would the answers he sought lead him to the peace he craved or deeper into conflict and loss? Michael's heart thumped in his chest as he approached the door, the resolve he'd just mustered threatened by an unshakable doubt. He took a breath, forcing himself to remain steady despite the looming uncertainty about his own life, cradling a newfound sense of purpose for Emily's sake. With a quick turn of the handle, he swung open the door, revealing two unfamiliar faces, social workers, clipboard in hand and expressions of measured skepticism etched across their features. Mr. Caldwell. One of them, a woman with sharp spectacles and a no-nonsense demeanor, began. We're here for the initial assessment regarding Emily. Come in, he invited, attempting to project calmness even as he felt the walls of his sanctuary begin to close in on him. He stepped back to let them enter, his mind racing with thoughts about how intrusively they would scrutinize every inch of his world. The social worker's gaze flicked around the living room, taking in everything, the warmth of the fire crackling in the corner, the art supplies sprawled on the coffee table, and most damningly his own casual attire. Was this enough? Would it look like enough? Please, have a seat, he said, gesturing toward a mixture of elegant furniture and scattered toys. As they settled, he took the empty chair opposite them, vulnerability setting in. I've worked hard to make this home a safe environment for her. The male social worker, a stocky man with an unyielding glare, remained silent but diligent, scratching notes onto his clipboard. Michael resisted the urge to fidget, his mind racing to anticipate their questions and determine how best to present himself. Tell us about your daily routine with Emily, the woman prompted, her voice meeting him with a mix of scrutiny and professionalism. He recounted their mornings, breakfast rituals filled with laughter, messy cleaning sessions, painting time that revealed his own ineptitude with brushes but filled with joyous creativity in Emily's hands. When he spoke of reading her stories at night, his throat tightened. Was it charming or pathetic? Did the details satisfy their need for transparency, or would they see through the facade he barely understood himself? Michael, while those are lovely moments, our job is to ensure that Emily's basic needs are consistently met, she reminded him, her tone now carrying a hint of caution. We require proof of stability financially and emotionally. He nodded, but there was a hollowness in that acceptance. Would merely stating his accomplishments, trophies earned in a boardroom, demonstrate the loving care Emily needed? In that instant, his mind processed the familiar ache of loneliness that had driven him for years. The streets that had forged his business acumen couldn't prepare him for this intimate, raw display of his humanity was uncharted territory. He straightened his back, realizing that he needed to reveal more of himself. I can provide references, he started cautiously, friends and colleagues who can attest to my capabilities and commitment. But I need you to know it's not just a legal battle for me. It's about her happiness and safety. The silence settled like a weight, every second stretched close to a minute. Your sincerity is noted, the man replied finally, looking up from his clipboard, his gaze penetrating. But claiming emotional commitment is different from proving it. Emotion alone won't convince a judge. As verbalized doubts filled the air, Michael felt a sense of panic begin to bubble. This assessment was evolving into a confrontation of who he had been versus who he aspired to be for Emily. Each comment from the pair drew him deeper into the volcano of scrutiny, igniting flickers of self-doubt he thought he had buried. Maybe I need to arrange changes at work, he said suddenly, the words spilling out unbidden. Show I can commit more time to her. But even as he declared this, he was struck by the reality of what that meant. Would he sacrifice everything in his career for a chance at this? Would he regret such a choice later, exposing himself to failure? It is vital that you fully understand the implications of this commitment, the woman interjected, breaking into his spiraling thoughts. Emily requires consistent emotional support from you and stability in her environment. Right now, every decision you make counts. In that moment, the weight of responsibility began to settle in, seeping deep into his bones. It wasn't just about winning a legal battle, it was about crafting an identity built on love, responsibility, and vulnerability. Each requirement felt less like a chore and more like a demanding testament to his character. As they wrapped up their preliminary questions, Michael felt an electrifying determination surge within him. He would demonstrate that his life could indeed change, not just for Emily's sake but for his own. But would the social workers see the spark of his transformation, or would their decisions eclipse his efforts? As they offered to schedule follow-up visits and left him standing in the doorway, he couldn't shake off the burning question in his mind: how deeply would he need to redefine himself to truly protect what he had come to love? With Emily's laughter echoing in his ears and the shadow of doubt still lingering, he steeled himself for the next phase in this uncertain path. The stakes had never felt higher. Would he emerge from this a father, or return to his solitary life successful yet hollow? Michael stood alone in the doorway, the faint sound of the social worker's footsteps fading away, each step echoing the reality he was now reluctantly tethered to. The weight of their scrutiny lingered in the air, a stark reminder of what was at stake. He felt like a character in a play whose script was being rewritten with every decision he made. The room felt increasingly stifling, and he let the door fall shut behind him, as if sealing away the uncertainties that had crept in. He ventured back to the living room, where the remnants of their assessment seemed to cling to the walls. Each toy scattered around was a fragment of the life he wanted to build for Emily, yet now it all felt like a facade. He glanced at the paints on the coffee table, evidence of their attempted creativity, and felt a swell of guilt that he might never be enough. With a deep breath, he picked up a brush, dipping it into a vivid shade of blue. Painting had become a form of therapy for him since Emily entered his life. It forced him to focus, to channel his fears into something tangible. As his strokes blurred, he focused on his thoughts instead of the canvas. What would a perfect day for Emily look like? He envisioned mornings filled with laughter, afternoons filled with joy, and steady support through her struggles. The world had always been transactional for him, yet this was different. Unconditional love was supposed to be freeing, yet it felt anchored and suffocating, as if every moment spent at work now came with emotional chains. How could he build a life for Emily if he didn't know how to build a secure life for himself? He paused, realizing how quickly he had started to plan. Without realizing it, he had started to weave his vision back to himself. What did stability look like? Did it mean scaling back his ambitions, stepping down a rung on the corporate ladder? Sacrificing the hard-fought respect he had earned in the business world? The thought caused a tightening in his chest. But as Michael stood there, paintbrush poised, another realization crept forward: he had been running from emotional commitments for years. The emotional toll his career had taken was not the only factor, it was an unresolved conflict within him. Was his identity tied too tightly to career success? Perhaps it was time for a re-evaluation. He grabbed his phone, fingers trembling slightly as he scrolled through his contacts. There were names, friends and mentors who had known him before the chase for success consumed him. A quiet sense of resolve began to take shape. It was not just about showing the social worker's value in his ability to provide for Emily. He needed to reconnect with people who could remind him of who he was before the pursuit of power bent his persona and overshadowed his capacity for vulnerability. With a finger hovering over a name, a sudden surge of courage coursed through him. He dialed, his heart racing not in fear, but with anticipation for the conversation that could begin to reshape his world. "Hey, Dave. It's been a while. I really need to talk." As he hung up, he realized this was a first step not just for him, but for Emily too. He aimed to reforge connections that had frayed at the edges, to ground himself in the type of love that transcended fleeting accolades. He would not allow his emotions to remain a currency held tightly in the vault of his past. However, the implications of this growing intention weighed heavily on him. Within this commitment to changing himself lay the unasked question: could he really embrace vulnerability? Later, he sat beside Emily, who was dabbing her brush on another canvas, oblivious to his internal shifts. She looked so carefree, unburdened by the things that tormented his mind. There was a lesson in her innocence, a contrasting simplicity that held deep wisdom. As he watched her lose herself in color, he understood that commitment could mean letting go of pride for something far greater. Yet, doubt flickered back in. What if the social workers observed changes in him but still believed they were inconsequential? Would it truly be enough to illustrate the depth of his commitment? The specter of his previous self-deceit loomed. Would it transform into sincere love, or flounder as a facade when challenged? And so, with the brush still in hand, the future hung uncertain before him, a puzzle waiting to be completed. Having decided to commit to personal evolution, the unanswered question punctuated the air: how far could he go before he faced himself in the mirror? Would he summon the courage needed to prove to the world and himself that he could become the father Emily deserved? Michael awoke the next morning with a sense of purpose rippling through him. The weight of uncertainty still loomed, but it was overshadowed by an increasing curiosity about the man he could evolve into, not just as Emily's father, but as himself. He needed to chase a path that resonated with his true values, which meant embracing not just the roles he played but the core of who he was. Emily was still nestled in her bed, hair splayed out like a halo, a canvas of innocence. Watching her sleep, he had an epiphany: he needed to establish a new routine, one that nourished both their spirits. The decision sparked an invigorating sense of agency within him. Creating a nurturing environment wasn't solely about possessions or structured schedules, but a reflection of deeper connections and experiences. After a small, quiet breakfast, he wasted no time. "How about we paint together, Em?" he suggested, the words slipping past his lips with unexpected excitement. She blinked awake, a yawning smile spreading across her face as she scrambled to get ready. They moved back to the living room, a chaotic whirl of creativity awaiting them. As they painted side by side, vibrant colors splattering across their canvases, something shifted within him. Each stroke of the brush became more than just an artistic expression, it served as an avenue into their relationship, a way to teach Emily that it was okay to fail, to try again, and to learn how to articulate her feelings. Their laughter combined with the rhythmic sound of brushes against canvas, creating an atmosphere suffused with freedom. Michael caught glimpses of the man he feared he might never become, a father who could embrace both success and vulnerability. He hadn't realized how essential these moments were in recalibrating his perception of stability. It wasn't merely a state of being, but a living experience grounded in connection. But the uncertainty that had settled onto his shoulders was still there, lurking at the edges. The phone call to Dave had set him on a path, and now he needed to follow through. As he painted, he contemplated the conversation ahead. Would he be able to articulate his fears and aspirations? Could he bridge the chasm between who he was and who he aspired to be? After several hours of bonding, Emily announced, "Look at my rainbow, Daddy." Her canvas exuded unsettling beauty, colors dancing wildly, free of the constraints he often imposed on himself. "It's beautiful, Em. But what does it mean to you?" The question surprised him too, as he realized it wasn't just about interpreting her art, it was about digging deeper into the layers of their lives together. "I think it means I'm happy," she replied innocently. Michael felt a pang of recognition. Happiness didn't require elaborate explanations, it just needed to be embraced. It began to dawn on him his visions of stability were too rigid, shackled to the confines of societal expectations. Perhaps, by witnessing Emily's unencumbered joy, he would also learn to let go of the shackles of his self-imposed limitations. An unsettling thought crept in. Would he be able to sustain this newfound perspective when facing the social workers again? He recognized the transformative potential in these moments, tempered by the anxiety of that looming appointment. They had seen him at his corporate best, but now, vulnerable and earnest, he had to convey that depth to others, prove that he was more than just his profession. He staggered through another wave of doubt. What if he failed again? What if others only witnessed the remnants of his past? As the day passed and evening approached, he understood that the first step was about showing Emily that life could exist richly, colorfully, and without confines. The burden of professional achievement paled in comparison to the importance of cultivating a nurturing space. After dinner, with the canvases still drying, Michael set aside time to prepare for Dave. He began to pen his thoughts, reasoning not just through the challenges but also through his desires. The act of writing became cathartic, a bridge connecting his reflections and ambitions. But in that moment of clarity, another question took shape in his mind: could he articulate his transformation effectively enough to convince those examining his life that he was ready? Would these personal developments resonate beyond the walls of his living room? He heard Emily giggling from the next room, her laughter reaching him like a call to joy. As he closed his journal, a new resolution cemented within him: he could not shy away from this vulnerability. With the echo of Emily's laughter in his heart, he prepared to meet Dave. Suddenly, the weight of his past no longer felt suffocating. Instead, it transformed into a foundation for the person he was becoming. This wasn't just about proving himself to others, it was about proving to himself that he could flourish not only as a successful man but as a father who genuinely cared. The moment of truth was coming, and it would define the next chapter of their lives. Tomorrow, he would confront his fears, yet the tantalizing prospect of discovery lingered in the air. Was it possible that revealing his authentic self might yield the greatest reward? The morning arrived with a crispness that mirrored Michael's intensified resolve. He glanced at the clock, its hands moving inexorably toward the time he had dreaded for so long. Today wasn't just about attending a meeting, it was about stepping into the light of who he wanted to be. The echoes of yesterday's laughter still reverberated in him, a reminder of the joy he and Emily had shared. After getting Emily dressed and ready for school, Michael took a moment to revisit the journal he'd written in, its pages now thick with the ink of his thoughts and aspirations. Each sentence felt like a footstep along a path he had long avoided, a manifestation of his intentions. He read part of it over again, letting the weight of his words settle upon him. Today, I will share my truth. He knew he must confront not only the social worker's expectations but also the gauntlet of his own fears. What would happen if he bared his soul? The thought of vulnerability felt like stepping onto uncharted terrain. A part of him wanted to run back to the safety of his old self, to the routine that had once defined him. But a deeper part, ignited by Emily's laughter, propelled him forward. As they finished breakfast, Emily's excitement about school shimmered in her eyes. During their short ride, he couldn't help but glance at her closely, studying her features. She was blossoming, her curiosity unyielded, her spirit uncontained. "You ready for a fun day?" he asked, feeling an uneasy knot twist in his stomach. "Yes, Daddy. We're doing a puppet show today." The sheer exuberance in her response made him smile. Her joy was contagious, yet it also deepened his resolve. He wanted to ensure her happiness would not be silenced by his past. He dropped Emily off and stood for a moment in the school parking lot, absorbing the scene of children scurrying. It was as if he was both participant and spectator in an alien world, where each child held the essence of unfettered potential. Before stepping back into his car, he took in a few deep breaths, anchoring himself in the moment. Back at home, the silence pressed in on him, a stark contrast to the vibrant moments he'd spent with Emily. He opened his laptop, staring at the blank screen that felt heavier than usual. He had to reach out to Dave, to communicate his thoughts clearly and cohesively. After several attempts to find the right words, he began to type, his fingers hesitating. Would he be too harsh? Too vulnerable? He paused, allowing the static of doubt to clear momentarily. There was depth in his struggle, he needed to show it, the drive behind his transformation and the reality of his fears. Carefully, he drafted an email that balanced his ambitions with his authenticity, reiterating his commitment not just to charming the panel with his past successes but showcasing who he had become in the present. A soft ping interrupted him. Dave's message appeared as simple, "Looking forward to our discussion today." Those words both comforted and unnerved him. The time had come to face that very discussion. The hours dwindled down as he prepared mentally. He flipped through the notes he had jotted down, reminders of his values and the pivotal moments leading him to this point. Each note wasn't just a logistical step, it was a declaration of who he wanted to be, a caring father, a sincere man, someone unafraid to allow others a glimpse beyond his professional facade. As the clock inched closer to his appointment, anxiety washed over him in waves. He could feel his heart racing, the sweat on his palms betraying his otherwise composed appearance. He knew he had to reveal more than his domestic growth, he had to show they could trust him again. Stepping out of the house, he paused, his breathing steadied. The afternoon sun wrapped itself around him, highlighting the path leading to his car. If he could express this transformation to Dave, perhaps it would extend far beyond that room. Perhaps it would be the key to reshaping the narrative of his life. With purpose surging within him, he climbed into the car and backed out slowly. The roads felt different today, each turn a step closer to becoming the man he wanted to be. No longer just a business persona today, he would stake his claim on fatherhood, courage, and vulnerability. The office building loomed ahead, posing as both a sanctuary and a battleground. As he parked, he felt the ancient weight of expectation lift. He was ready to confront not just the system but the embodiment of his new self. But would it be enough to break through the walls he'd built for so long? The thought lingered like smoke. Could layers of authenticity melt the ice of judgment? It all hinged on this meeting, and as he entered the building, another question bellowed in his mind. What if he wasn't just revealing himself to Dave but to himself as well? The lobby was bright, filled with an anxious energy that mirrored Michael's internal turmoil. He stepped forward, his shoes sinking into plush carpeting, grounding him momentarily. Yet, the softness could not cushion the blow of realization. He was about to unearth himself, right here, in front of Dave. With each step toward the elevator, he felt the familiar push and pull of doubt, fear whispering that maybe he wasn't ready. As the doors slid shut, he caught his reflection in the polished metal. The man staring back carried traces of uncertainty, but somewhere beneath the surface, a determined fire smoldered. This meeting held potential for profound change, not just professionally, but personally. He envisioned that if he could concede his vulnerabilities before Dave, maybe the world he was constructing for Emily, the world of sincerity and acceptance, could truly thrive. When he reached the conference room, Dave stood by the large window, his back turned. The view over the city was expansive, full of vibrancy and life, contrasting sharply with Michael's apprehension. He cleared his throat, announcing his presence. "Hey, Michael," Dave greeted cheerfully, turning. Worry lifted Michael's heart slightly, and a flicker of hope ignited within him. Perhaps this wouldn't be as daunting as he had anticipated. They exchanged pleasantries, and as they took their seats, the atmosphere felt charged, a palpable sense of anticipation hanging in the air. Michael's gaze shifted to the notes cluttering the table. Words and phrases he had curated danced in his mind. He needed to navigate this conversation thoughtfully, to strike a balance between his past missteps and the man he aimed to become. "Let's talk about your transition, where you see yourself moving forward," Dave prompted, the corner of his mouth lifting as though he knew the weight of expectation resting on Michael's shoulders. Here it was his moment. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to remember how far he'd come since Emily had entered his life. "You know, I've done a lot of thinking lately. Success has changed for me. It's no longer just about numbers and accolades." Dave's expression shifted slightly, a glimmer of intrigue dancing in his eyes. Michael pressed on, his voice steadier now. "I understand that I've built a facade that protected me, but I also know that it's time to dismantle those barriers. My past experiences shaped me, but they don't define my future." He watched the words hit Dave, seeking out a reaction. This honesty felt raw and unfiltered, something he had long shielded from everyone. Suddenly, the walls of professionalism seemed to melt, giving way to genuine rapport. "You're right," Dave said slowly, his brow furrowing slightly in thought. "But there are risks involved. Walking the path of vulnerability isn't easy." "I realize that," Michael replied, the warmth of determination suffusing his body. "But I want to bring authenticity back into my life, for Emily and for myself. I need to show her what it means to be vulnerable and real." A mix of hesitation and understanding flickered across Dave's face. "It's admirable, Michael, but are you prepared for the challenges? Honesty can cut deep, especially in corporate settings." "Absolutely," Michael said, astonished by the surge of conviction. "If I want to lead in a way that inspires trust, I have to relinquish perfection. I want to embrace the chaos that comes with being genuine and vulnerable." As the conversation unfolded, Michael felt a sense of clarity penetrating the obstacles he previously faced. He was not walking back into the tones of vulnerability with trepidation. He was stepping forward into a version of himself that had long been buried under the weight of expectation. The dialogue shifted seamlessly, each exchange revealing unexpected insights into Michael's motivations. Dave leaned forward, rapt with interest, and for the first time since stepping into the office, Michael felt a synergy building. Soon, though, the conversation pivoted. "Let us discuss specifics," Dave suggested, his tone now serious. "What should we expect to see from you moving forward? Can we trust that this shift won't compromise your professional responsibilities?" That question lingered, gnawing at Michael's insides. He had to respond prudently, grounding his ambition in reality without reverting to defensiveness. "Trust is paramount," Michael began slowly, grasping for clarity. "I'll show you the metrics, the impact. I'll take accountability for the shift in my approach, both at work and in my life." What he didn't realize as he spoke were the cracks beginning to appear in his assurance, an unsteady realization that came with it. What if showing vulnerability doesn't just test the waters of acceptance at work but also reveals uncharted aspects of himself? As silence settled between them, a tension hung palpably in the air. The dream of inspiring authenticity tugged at him, yet doubts clawed at the edges of his resolve. Would he, in lay bare his true self, ultimately blur the lines of his new identity? Michael's breath caught, a wave of doubt threatening to crash over him once more. Could he truly allay his fears and transform not just his reputation but his entire existence? What would it mean to stake a claim not just to professional growth but to emotional honesty? He faced Dave earnestly, uncertain yet desperate for assurance. Was he crossing a line that, once traversed, could alter not just his life and Emil's future but the very fabric of his being? The question lingered in the silence, heavy and unresolved, as both men pondered the journey yet to unfold. The meeting felt interminable, each second stretching in a fragile silence. Michael shifted his weight, searching for a path out of the malevolent grip of doubt that had settled around him. Their conversation, initially a comforting flame illuminating his aspirations, had morphed into a storm cloud conspiring against his newfound clarity. "I've taken risks before," he said, attempting to bolster his resolve. "I've faced challenges analogous to these. But this time, it's different. I'm not just leading a team. I'm reclaiming my authenticity. The stakes are personal." Dave regarded him, skepticism creasing his brow. "Personal endeavors can skew our judgment, Michael. You must ensure your motivation aligns with the company's vision, which demands its own brand of authenticity." Michael nodded, absorbing Dave's cautious wisdom, yet feeling it harden into another wall. How could he explain that his personal evolution was not merely an indulgence, but rather an essential part of his professional responsibilities? Igniting this parallel demanded a new mindset. He needed to see his vulnerabilities as strengths, embracing them as part of his leadership arsenal. "What if," Michael began, choosing his words with painstaking care, "showing vulnerability allows my team to trust me more? What if the misguided belief that I have to uphold an image only stifles their creativity?" The question hung in the air, a fragile hope intertwined with uncertainty. Dave's expression remained unreadable. "A gamble, Michael. One that could either empower your team or shake their confidence in your leadership." "And what if it empowers me?" Michael retorted, the conviction in his voice growing with each utterance. "What if I can lead with authenticity and guide those around me, showing them that it's okay to be flawed? They will recognize that success isn't a solitary achievement, but a collective journey, one paved with our shared experiences." Dave maintained his silence, and the weight of indecision pressed down like a tangible force. Michael searched his own mind, a tempest of thoughts and emotions swirling. What if this plunge into vulnerability unearthed something primal within him, or worse, exposed a facet he wasn't prepared to confront? "Michael, you raise compelling points," Dave finally conceded, his voice softened as though recognizing the gravity of their exchange. "But, navigating through personal revelations amidst a corporate structure is a precarious balance. You must have a strategic plan, demonstrating how your vision aligns with our goals." Strategy. The word echoed like a bell, sharpening clarity in Michael's mind. He needed a framework, something tangible to anchor his unpredictable emotions. "I will develop a strategy," he responded, determination hardening his resolve. "One that showcases a refreshed approach to leadership. A series of workshops perhaps, where vulnerability and authentic dialogue are at the forefront." We can foster an environment of genuine collaboration. It is not just about me, but encouraging the entire team to engage in more honest dialogues. As he articulated this vision, a flicker of confidence ignited in his chest. The neural pathways forged optimism while simultaneously sharpening the sense of risk. This was a departure from the hard-edged, results-driven approach he had previously adhered to. Now, Michael pressed forward, his fingers brushing across the notes once more. Let us discuss how I could concretely deliver on these ideals. If we genuinely aim to redefine our workplace culture, it must begin with us. It must start with openness leading to the real ideas that can drive tangible results. Dave leaned back, his posture relaxing ever so slightly. We can explore a pilot program, but I'll need measurements to ensure this does not jeopardize our objectives. You realize this could backfire if it is not executed properly. A cascade of possibilities unfurled in Michael's mind. He could feel each idea emerge like a butterfly breaking free from its cocoon, promising metamorphosis. But his heart was still heavy with the unknowing. What if exposing this new direction unveiled complexities about himself that remained dormant? Understood. I'll establish metrics, not merely for accountability but for tracking the evolution of our team's culture, he replied, each word igniting a flicker of pride. Yet within that pride loomed the shadow of fear, teasing him with uncertainty. As they crafted next steps, Michael couldn't shake the escalating tension of self-discovery. Every plan he made only reverberated echoes of deeper vulnerabilities yet unexamined. Would this initiative fortify his resolve, or would it unravel threads of his carefully constructed identity? With determination burning brightly, he locked eyes with Dave, a silent pact forming between them, a shared journey ahead, filled with the unknowns of vulnerability. But embracing that uncertainty was a necessary risk, life in all its rawness. Michael's thoughts danced with both excitement and trepidation as they wrapped up their meeting. Little did he know, the broader implications of this newfound authenticity were about to disturb not only his life at work but the sanctuary he had built at home. A real confrontation awaited him. What would Emily think about her father's journey into the unpredictable realms of transparency and raw emotion? The reality struck him like lightning. Could he bear to expose that side of himself? The resolve he had cultivated slipped slightly as unease sank in again. Would he fully commit to this path, or would he falter in the moments that truly mattered? The answers eluded him, as the haze of introspection lingered, a challenge that was only beginning to unfold. In the days that followed, Michael felt the weight of his commitment pressing down on him. He had laid the foundation for vulnerability in the office, but now it was time to extend that transformative journey into his home life, as Emily deserved to experience the father he had recently begun to understand. The echoes of his conversation with Dave resonated within him, illuminating the path ahead while casting shadows of doubt. As he entered his home that evening, the laughter of children drifted from the neighbors' yards, mingling with the cool air outside. Michael stepped inside, allowing the warm light of the living room to seep into his bones. Emily was sprawled on the carpet, deep in concentration as she painted a wild landscape on oversized paper. The sight tugged at his heart. This child, with all her unfiltered joy, was who he needed to be for her, open and authentic. "Hey, Em," he said softly, filling the room with his presence. She looked up, her face lighting up like a sunrise. "Do you want to paint together?" Her eyes sparkled. "Yes." As they dipped their brushes into vibrant colors, something shifted between them. Each stroke of paint felt more significant than mere art. It became a display of connection, a way to share thoughts that had been unspoken before. Tension melted away as they allowed themselves to create freely, with laughter jostling playfully between them. "Can I tell you something?" he asked hesitantly, unsure of how to broach his vulnerabilities without overshadowing her innocent creativity. "Of course," she replied eagerly, wiping her hands on her paint-splattered jeans. "I want you to know that I'm learning about being a better dad. It means sometimes I'll make mistakes or feel scared, but I promise to always be there for you." Emily didn't skip a beat. "You're already a good dad. You help me with my paintings and read stories and you let me be me." The simplicity of her response struck him right in the chest. Her unconditional acceptance was a balm for his uncertainties. He realized he hadn't just been striving to be a good father, he was learning to embrace his fragility and allow space for mistake and growth. As days turned into weeks, the home assessment approached. That date loomed like a freight train. Michael actively worked on strategies to demonstrate his capability as a guardian. He practiced articulating his newfound values, weaving his experiences into a narrative of transformation that underscored his commitment to Emily's well-being, showcasing stability, and implementing the changes that would reflect a nurturing environment. Emily thrived under his care. He took her to art classes, enrolled them in interactive storytelling sessions, and explored emotional workshops together. Michael watched as she flourished, her laughter exploding in resplendent hues as she engaged with children of her age. Parental instincts started to come naturally to him. He became attentive, supportive, and most importantly, open. On the day of the assessment, chaos brewed within him. He prepared meticulously, gathering documentation that showcased their bond, the smiling photographs, Emily's colorful artworks, and even the lists of shared lunches. When the social workers arrived, he felt his nerves tighten, yet adrenaline surged within him. Today was not about performance, it was about proving he could foster a safe and loving home for Emily. With the social workers observing, he began recounting their routines, the laughter-filled moments creating an environment conducive to growth. It became clear to him that his journey wasn't merely measured in the aesthetics of their lives but rather in the depth of their connection, a blend of emotional strength and commitment to nurture. "Emily, why don't you share your favorite part about living here?" he prompted, his voice laced with genuine encouragement. She beamed, her big brown eyes sparkling. "I love when Daddy reads me stories at night and lets me choose the silly ones. And painting with him is always fun. We make messes, but he says messes mean we're creating. He helps me think that anything is possible." In that moment, listening to her unreservedly pour her heart about their life together, Michael felt the barriers he had built evaporate. Here was the evidence, the proof that he was not just a billionaire seeking to provide for a child, he was a father, genuinely committed to her happiness and security. The tension filled the room, but he no longer felt the looming threat of judgment. He was speaking from a place of truth, no longer ensnared by the suffocating need for validation. By the end of the assessment, the social workers exchanged glances, their professional demeanor softening. "You've constructed a powerful narrative here, Mr. Thornton," the female worker said, her voice approving. "It's evident that this child's happiness and well-being are at the forefront of your priorities." As they packed up to leave, he held his breath in anticipation, a hawk waiting to grab its prey. But when they finally left, the air exited his lungs in a relieved rush. There was still uncertainty as to how it would unfold in the coming days, but he felt a triumph echoing within him. He had put himself on the line, and more importantly, he had been open about his growth. He turned to Emily, who was already busy painting yet another whimsical scene on her canvas, her delight pouring out in colors that danced across the page. "You were amazing, Em." She looked up, cheeks dimpled in a smile. "We make a good team, Daddy." The warmth of that simple acknowledgement wrapped around him like a heavy quilt, weighing more than the criticism he had once held. They began to paint together again, but before he dipped his brush, he blinked. A profound thought erupted in his mind. The achievement wasn't just in securing a physical place for Emily, it was in nurturing her spirit through vulnerability and love. He had faced the mirror and found a father staring back. His successes were no longer measured in spreadsheets, they were etched onto moments like these, relentlessly developing connections between themselves. And so, beneath the tender glow of the setting sun streaming through their windows, Michael grasped a difference. He had not only achieved an emotional victory but unveiled the realization of a long-ignored dream, to create a family where both he and Emily could thrive side by side, embracing both imperfections and unyielding love. As he watched her again, brush gliding effortlessly over the paper, confidence surged through him. No matter what society could throw at him, he felt fortified by their bond and a growing sense of self-acceptance. He was now a father, and that role was worth every risk he had taken to get there. So now was the time to echo the triumph beyond the confines of this home. As he and Emily shared the evening's joy, they began to paint their futures a vivid mosaic of colors capturing not only their dreams but the strength they had unearthed through the process. Michael had achieved something authentic. In that moment, he resolved never to shy away from the specter of vulnerability, for it was this journey grounded in openness that had ushered him home to himself, and Emily's laughter would forever be the song that heralded that arrival. Your journey to personal transformation starts now. Let us know how you plan to embrace change in your life by hitting that comment button below. You need to subscribe now to witness more inspiring stories that will propel you into action. Don't wait even one more second to share this transformative experience with 5 friends who deserve inspiration on their journey. Leave a like if this touched your heart. Let us spread the message of overcoming together.